A few weeks ago, I hit a huge milestone of reaching 5,000 subscribers, and I asked you guys to send in some questions for me to answer, and I got many amazing ones. So in today's video, we're going to be answering some questions, and the questions that came in can be bucketed into 3 different categories. The first one is around my background, my journey, and my roadmap. And then the second one is around my work and my process. And then of course, the last bucket is around some fun ones, some personal ones. So I'm going to actually separate this Q&A into 2 videos so that it's not too long. And I'm gonna put all the timestamps for each of the questions so you can skip around, and let's get started. What is your programming background? So I actually didn't study computer science in college. I actually studied mechanical engineering, and I went to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the US. And there, during my freshman year, I took a course called Introduction to Programming. And I actually still remember the name of the course. It was 15110, and it was one of the most difficult courses that I took that year. And it was because I never had a chance, or I wasn't exposed to the programming way of thinking, and I thought I was really bad at it and I was not built to program. But then when I was in my junior year, I took a class, and I talked about this a few times already. I took a class called Interactive Art and Computational Design, taught by a professor named Golan Levin, and it was my favorite course out of all the classes I took in college, actually. And it introduced me to the concept of using code as a mean to make art. And there was when I fell in love with this intersection between art and technology. Next question, what has your career looked like so far? So after I took that course during my junior year, I just knew that I wanted to work within this field. And luckily I got a job at a company called WET, which stands for Water Entertainment Technology, and they build large water installations, dancing fountains. And you might have seen some of the famous ones, one being the Bellagio fountain in Las Vegas. And when I was there, I was there for a few years, and the first 2 years I worked as a creative technologist under the product design / R&D team. And there I worked with a team to do a bunch of prototypes of ideas to figure out new ways to shoot out waters, basically. And also I got to explore making some interactive fountains, and it was a lot of experimentation, and it was really fun. And then during my 3rd year, I worked as a mechanical engineer, and in that role, it was a lot more technical, and it was basically just engineering the devices that shoot out water. But while I was at WET, I realized that I wanted to learn more about how a business is run, and being a creative technologist or a mechanical engineer, you work on very detailed problems, and so you're not very exposed to the bigger picture. So after I worked there for 3 years, I decided that I want to learn more about business, and I decided to apply to business schools. And I got into business school, and then I was there for 2 years. I learned a lot about business theory. I met a lot of very talented people, and I had a lot of fun. And so after those 2 years, I got a job at a fashion company, actually. So I was kind of away from the whole art and technology field for a few years. But when I was at a fashion company, it was a startup, and I worked alongside the CEO, and I really learned the ins and outs of how a business is run, which was actually exactly what I wanted. It was like an MBA 2.0, and I struggled a lot at the beginning, but then I learned a lot and got much better, and it was a really valuable experience. And this leads to the next question. What was the turning point in your life that made you start posting videos? So I would have to say that there was no one moment that was like, okay, I'm gonna quit my job and then I'm going to start posting videos on YouTube. It was actually a gradual realization of what I wanted to do with my life. And let me just break that down a little bit. So in a span of 10 years, right, since I took that class, I just knew that I wanted to do something around art and technology. And since I was very young, I really wanted to start a business. And whenever someone asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I always say I wanted to be a businesswoman. I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but I just wanted to, I guess, build something of my own. And while I was at WET, I thought that the type of business that I wanted to build was some sort of a public installation company. And that idea actually still lingered in my head when I was in business school. But after I worked at the fashion company, I really learned about the type of business that I wanted to start. My experience up until that point gives me some clarity and allows me to really envision the type of life that I want to live. And so I can put that into two main buckets. The first one is lifestyle, and the second one is work. So in terms of lifestyle, it is very important for me to have two things: flexibility of time and location. And then in terms of work, I want to be able to start a business that centers around a problem that I really care about. It comes down to starting an online business that centers around art, technology, and education. So like I said, there's no one turning point, but it was a gradual process of gaining more clarity of what I wanted out of life, and then just make a decision and go for it. Where are you trying to take it? The banner on my channel says Make Art with Code, and that was my main focus for the entire past year, which was to really consistently make art with code and hopefully bring like-minded people together to make art with code. And 6,000 subscribers later, that vision has come true. And so now I can focus on my bigger vision, which my new slogan is to ignite creative sparks. So I really want my work to spark curiosity. I want it to empower people to really explore their creative potential. And also I want to encourage a lifelong passion for learning. And that can come in many different forms. And right now I'm focusing on sharing my content online to show you what is possible. But eventually I really hope to build a community either online or offline or both. And I took a lot of inspiration from ITP Camp, which some of you might know is a summer camp at NYU where I spent a whole month meeting a lot of like-minded people. And it was such a great idea because it brings in like-minded people who are interested in art and technology into one space for a limited of time, which really is a catalyst for a lot of idea generations and new and exciting collaborations and things like that. So I hope to do something along that line in the future, hopefully. How do you see your content evolving in the next 3 years? In terms of my content, I will focus on just experimenting with what sticks. So I'm going to continue with the content that works, but also experiment with new things to inspire engagement and excitement. So if there's content that I have experimented with that you do enjoy or you do not enjoy, be sure to let me know so I know the direction that I should go with. All right, so now the last few questions are going to be some fun questions. So what is your hobby? I guess outside of programming. So I actually really enjoy running. I run pretty regularly. I make sure that I run around 4 to 5 times a week. And that, to be honest, really helps with my productivity. And it is a really good break for my brain from programming. And also I really enjoy doing activities outside. So I do some biking, I do some hiking, and I just try to go out as much as I can. What is your favorite book? So in terms of genre, I really love reading memoirs. So I like learning about stories about people and how they become the way that they've become. And my favorite has to be Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. It's so interesting to read about how far he has come based on his upbringing. And in terms of fiction, my favorite has to be Chingo by Minji Lee. And it's a story about 3 generations of Korean women the reason I love this book so much is because it really shows how much each generation has sacrificed for the next generation to have what they have right now. And it makes me reflect a lot about my life and how I have come to where I am right now because of the sacrifice that my parents and also the generation before has done for me. The last question is, what do you watch on YouTube lately? Actually, lately I haven't been watching a lot of coding tutorials or anything related to coding. I just picked up a new hobby actually, which I hadn't mentioned, which is crocheting. So I have been just watching a lot of tutorials on how to crochet online. And because I spent a month in New York back in June, and I really enjoyed my time there, I've been watching a lot of vlogs of people just living their life in New York, and it just brings me back that memory. And my favorite YouTube channel or podcast that I listen to lately actually is the Safety Third podcast. I've been listening to it since the beginning of the year, and it's by these YouTubers, and you might, if you're interested in making stuff, you might already have seen their videos. But the reason I really like listening to them is because it really reminds me of my time back in college when my friends would be just talking about stuff, a bit nerdy stuff, but I always just put them in the background and just like do the work. And they also bring in very interesting guests, and I will just put some of my favorite episodes up here. All right, so that is the end of the first Q&A. I'll have another one around my work and process, so be on the lookout for that. And if you have any more questions, be sure to leave it in the comments. And see you in the next video. Bye.